presents a snapshot of the reserves and exploration resources as at December 31st, 2019. Natural gas is different to crude oil, as it cannot be stored and must be utilized as it is produced. It is for this reason that the careful quantification and monitoring of this valuable resource used for both the domestic sector in the petrochemical plants and the export market as liquefied natural gas is important. The annual reserves audit gives us the ability to plan strategically, especially in context of the natural gas value chain study, which is currently being undertaken. I urge you, therefore, to carefully listen, not just for the statistics, but also the analyses and the explanations which are presented, as it is very important to understand and evaluate in the broader context. Finally, I want to take the opportunity to congratulate the staff at the Ministry of Energy and Ryder Scott consultants who were able to conduct and complete this very technical study, inclusive of training, 100% virtually. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, PS. I now invite Senator the Honorable Franklin Canton, Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, to give the feature address.
Brilliant, Chef.
Well, look, I like zombies.
Thank you very much, Joy. Acting Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, Mrs. Penelope Bradshaw-Niles, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Sandra Fraser, other executives at the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industry, Executive Vice President, Ryder Scott Company, Mr. Herman Acuna, who is becoming quite famous here in Trinidad, members of the media, other invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the results of the annual audit of the non-associated natural gas reserves and resources of Trinidad and Tobago for the year ended 2019. This is the Ministry's second audit results press conference in 5 months. The last one being the results of the crude oil audit for the year ended 2018. This is evidence of the government's policy to maintain open channels of communication and to encourage the public to understand the natural resources that balance the high-stakes gas supply and demand equation for the country. The audit was conducted by Ryder Scott Company, which began conducting natural gas audits for and on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, beginning with the year-end 2000 audit. Thereafter, Ryder Scott completed audits annually until 2019 audit, with the exception of 2005. The current cabinet-approved contract with Ryder Scott was executed after a highly competitive tender process, which selected the company from a field of 5 prestigious international petroleum consultants and is for audits covering the 5-year period from year-end 2016 to 2020. The year-end 2019 audit is the 4th of the contract and is the subject of this presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, the main objective of the audit is to provide an independent, certified statement of the country's natural gas reserves and resources from an internationally recognized, in an internationally recognized reporting format. I further emphasize here that Ryder Scott is an independent petroleum consultant and therefore has no vested interest in this country or its reserves, unlike the government or the international oil companies that must compete for project investment based on these reserves. In order for the results of the audit to hold any credibility, resource volumes must be assessed in accordance with industry standards. Ryder Scott therefore uses internationally recognized and accepted standards that have been set by the World Petroleum Council, the Society of Petroleum Engineers, the American Association of Petroleum Geologists, and the Society of Petroleum Evaluation Engineers. Thus, we can be assured that a detailed country report produced by Ryder Scott provides sound and well-founded data which can be used as the basis for the development and shaping of national energy strategies and national energy policies. The current international reserve standard, last revised in 2018, introduced the new term technically recoverable resources, as well as P1 plus C1 resources. I will use these terms here from now on. Since we last presented to the nation on gas audit a little more than a year ago, the results of the current audit has boosted the trend of increasing technically recoverable resources, which started in 2017. If we now examine chart 1, which will be on your screen, which references total unrisked technically recoverable resources. This was formerly called 3P, or proved, possible, and probable. From 2000 to 2019, we observed a consistent upward trend in the total unrisked technically recoverable resources over the period 2016 to 2019 continued. And you'll see the bar charts moving upwards from 2016 to 2019. This growth period has now surpassed the last one from 2000 to 2002, both in terms of length and resource additions. At the same time, gas production remained relatively constant or relatively flat between 2018 and 2019. The P1 and C1 technically recoverable resources, which was formerly referred to as proven reserves, has extended its growth path as well. Between 2018 and 2019, the country experienced 113% replacement of these reserves. This means, as shown in chart 2, that 1.25 TCF of P1 and C1 resources produced, and you will see the 1.25 in red, was replaced by additions amounting to 1.4 TCF in that year, taking the P1 and C1 resources from 10.5 TCF to 10.7 TCF. That's the two blue bar charts there. By this statistic, the independent auditor confirmed 3 unbroken years of P1 plus C1 resources, formerly called proven resource increases, rising from 0.8 TCF rising by 0.8 TCF from 9.9 TCF in 2016, now surpassing the length of the 2000 to 2002 expansion, when it grew from 19.7 TCF to 20.8 TCF. Exploration resources declined from 2018 to 2019, after rising 34% between 2016 and 2017, as the immense deepwater gas resource leads were quantified and added to the report, as can be seen on chart 3. The fall between 2018 and 2019 is partly due to prospect depletion arising from an unsuccessful well. Nonetheless, exploration success in the deep water was responsible for the movement of large volumes out of this category and into the technically recoverable resource category. The year-end 2019 audit report highlights the following movements within the P1 and C1 technically recoverable resources, formerly proven category. 1. In 2017, the Trinidad Region Offshore Compression Project, better known as STROC, resulting in upward reserves adjustment for fields located in the Mahogany and Amherst hub, such as Cape, due mainly to better well performance, and in the Angeline field, due to remapping based on new well data. The Amherst and Mango, in Amherst and Mango, there were negative revisions due to performance and reclassification. For Shell, the revisions of the original oil and gas in place due to seismic interpretation in the Endeavour field resulted in an addition of technically recoverable resources. BHP had major success with Bel-Air, Boom, High Hat, and Tuck exploration wells. The deepwater discovery now accounts for the majority of BHP's P1 and C1 resources in Trinidad by Ryder Scott examination. Now that the year-end 2019 gas audit is completed, which was the very first virtual audit, as mentioned by the PS, for the country, the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries and Ryder Scott plan to kick off data gathering for the year-end 2020 gas audit, tentatively carried to begin in March of this year. Ryder Scott geologists will be providing independent assessment of Touchstone Chinook and Cascador deep discoveries in the Ottawa block. Touchstone has estimated that the block could have as much as 500 to 600 BCF of wet natural gas and can produce in excess of 200 million standard cubic feet of gas per day and as much as 4,000 barrels of condensate per day. Also on the agenda is the possible remapping of fields like Parula, Bounty, and Endeavour, drilled by EOG and Shell respectively, based on successful development wells and the revaluation of reserves based on well performance. As always, we continue to look forward to the important work that Mr. Herman Acuna and his team will perform for us in the future. He will, after I conclude, he will make a more detailed presentation of the findings of the Ryder Scott audit. And I want to assure the media that his presentation in its entirety will be made available to the media. However, you will note that the figures that will be shared with you would be national figures. We cannot, for reasons of confidentiality, disaggregate the reserves into the individual companies, because this is considered strategic company information. The government will continue its drive for transparency in the energy sector and to keep the public reliably informed. Even though this presentation today is on reserves and was conducted by Ryder Scott, let me conclude by some remarks on the production side. As the nation is aware, 2021 will be a challenging year for gas production. Currently, we average just around 3.2 TCF per day. But there are a lot of important projects that will be coming on stream at the beginning of 2022 and onwards. On the production side, at the end of the third quarter of 2021, the Ruby project of BHP will be coming on stream. That would have a capacity of 150 million cubic feet per day. In quarter 1, 2022, BP will be commissioning its Matapal project as the Matapal platform. that has a capacity of 300 million cubic feet per day. Later in 2022, at the end of quarter 2, the Cassius C compression project will come on stream. That has an additional capacity of 300 million standard cubic feet per day. Also in Q1 and Q2 2022, Shell will be commissioning its Colibri and Barracuda projects that cumulatively would have a capacity of an additional 450 million cubic feet per day. As we move on further down, the very, very important Manatee project of Shell, which was the successful delinking of the Law and Manatee Unitization Treaty with Venezuela. The Manatee production is carded to come on stream sometime at the end of 2024 into 2025. That has a capacity that could range from a low of 350 million cubic feet per day to 700 million cubic feet per day. And further down, 2026 and beyond, we stand here cautiously optimistic of BHP developing the deep water gas reserves, which could have a potential, and I say this guardedly, somewhere between 600 million cubic feet per day and 1 BCF per day. So ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, we are sitting on fairly firm ground as far as the reserves position goes. On the production side, as I mentioned, and in all honesty, we'll have a challenge in 2021, but things are looking quite optimistic from 2022 and beyond. And that is the state of play here at the Ministry of Energy and Industry, where we are the custodian and we are the regulators of the natural gas industry, and we want to give the nation the commitment that we will continue to use our best effort to manage the gas resources and the energy resources for the nation in a way that will benefit all the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The media is again reminded to keep their mics muted. We now invite Mr. Herman Acuna, Executive Vice President of Ryder Scott Company Limited, to give a presentation of the results of the Trinidad and Tobago Gas Reserves Audit. Mr. Acuna.
Thank you. Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Senator the Honorable Franklin Can, Acting Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, Penelope Bradshaw Niles, members of the media, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the presentation of the 2019 Gas Reserves and Resources Certification for the country of Trinidad and Tobago. Before I start, I hope that you all have been doing well despite this very difficult year. And hopefully now with the vaccine and certain things ahead of us, we can leave that as a thing of the past. I also want to give my tremendous appreciation to the members of the ministry staff and our staff for the great effort. As Mr. Can noted, all of this work had to be accomplished remotely, which was a challenge, but fortunately with the help of a very capable team on all sides, including by the operators, we were able to accomplish this without a hitch. So without further ado, let me go ahead and present to you the results of the audit. I'll start with identifying our company, Ryder Scott Company, as we always do. But we have a heritage of over 80 years now of providing independent engineering and geological services to the oil and gas industry. We were founded in Bradford, Pennsylvania in 1937. As was mentioned before, we are an independent, privately owned partnership. So we have no interest in presenting results that are not accurate or are in any way compromising our independence on those results. We've been providing certifications, and we provide certifications to the ENP companies, governments, regulatory authorities, as well as banks, law firms, courts, trustees, accountants, and many others. We are a global company delivering over 800 reports per year all around the world. As we present our results, we have to follow a standard, and the standard we are using and have been using is the society, what is called the SPPRMS, sponsored by the Society of Petroleum Engineers and other organizations I mentioned before. These definitions were updated in 2018, and they introduced this new term called technically recoverable resources to bridge the gap between a technical evaluation and including, in addition to that, other volumes after you do economic evaluation. The results, to stay consistent with prior evaluations, are discussed herein, also in accordance of this new definition of technical recoverable resources, and we will include in those results the volumes within what is called reserves and contingent resources. Those will be discussed as technically recoverable resources. We will discuss 1P plus 1C, 2P plus 2C volumes, and the 3P plus 3C volumes. In addition to those technically recoverable resources, we are also going to present the results for prospective, or in this case, undiscovered volumes. The scope of the audit was to evaluate the areas operated by BP Trinidad, BHP Billiton, Tobago, EOG, Touchstone Exploration, Perenco, Shell Trinidad and Tobago, Trinity Exploration, and certain open areas. Let's start then the results by discussing the yearly gas production. The results, on the y-axis, you have the production expressed in BCF per year, billions of cubic feet of gas per year. And on the x-axis, you have a yearly production. As mentioned earlier, for the past 2 years, the production has been fairly steady at about 1.26, 1.25 trillion cubic feet per year. This is an increase to the results from the prior 2 years before that, 2016 and 2017, as you can see here, 1.2 TCF and 1.1 TCF. In general, production share between the main operators has remained fairly constant from prior years, with BPTT having the largest amount of production at 56%, Shell at 20%, EOG 12% of that production, BHP with 10%, and we have seen with the initiation of production from the Novo, a growth in its share to a 2% of that overall production. We have the results here from 2010 to 2019 of the volumes that we have certified over those years. As mentioned earlier, we have been looking at these volumes since 2020, and we have seen those volumes come to fruition. But in this table, we're presenting only the summary for the last 10 years. Let's begin with the 2019 results. For the 2019 results, the technically recoverable resources of the P1 plus C1, formerly discussed as the proof volumes, increased from 2018 10.5 TCF to the 2019 10.7 TCF. This represents a reserves replacement of 13%. The P2 volumes, or P2 plus C2 technically recoverable volumes, increased from 6.5 TCF to 6.8 TCF. Because of this movement to the higher certainty volumes, we do see a decrease in the P3 plus C3 of 6.5 to 6.4 TCF, and also a reduction in the exploration on-risk resources of 53 TCF to 50.3 TCF. It is important to note here that a lot of these gains that we see here are due to the success that we have seen and we have evaluated in some of the deep water exploration results. There have been other positive news in the shallow water, as noted earlier by the minister, and those will be discussed later in this presentation. It's important to note that these results are also included here in unrisked, as we have always done in the past. So let's proceed now with some of the highlights from 2019. We'll start with EOG. EOG had success with the Mento and Osprey East shallow water exploration wells. Those help in this reserve replacement that we presented earlier. Of course, BHP had success in the deep water with the prospects of Belly, Boom, and Tuk. But we also have some additional volumes as a result of field appraisal activities and optimal development. This is of deep water and opportunities critical. I'm sorry, I thought we had an extra bullet here. This bullet refers to the success of the eventual development of the deep water opportunities will depend on the field appraisal activities ongoing and the optimal development of such opportunities. In this graph, we show the evolution of the volumes. In green, you have the highest certainty volumes, which are the P1 and C1, formerly known as proved. The P2 plus C2, or the 2P plus C2, and the P3 plus C3. Important to see in this graph is that during the period of 2006 through 2014, the P1 plus C1 experienced a reduction based as a result of the production from these fields and depletion of these resources. Since 2015, the reduction started to continue, but we can see from 2016 through the last audit of 2019, the 1P plus 1C has increased and stayed fairly steady as a result of some of these efforts. This is important because it's an expression of sustainability of the production into the future. We have also seen an increase in the P2 plus C2 in red and in the P3 plus C3 in blue during this same period. If we look at that same information, but now also including the production, and the production here is shown in yellow. Of course, this is cumulative production since the beginning of our evaluations. We can see, of course, a steady increase in that production amounting to over 26 TCF over the past years. Important to see here is how steady this P1 plus C1 is, so the thickness of that bar, and has been maintained and increased over the past few years. And we can also see that the overall technical recoverable resources since the 2016 period has been increasing in 2017 by 8%, in 2018 by 6%, and by 2019 by 3%. So summarizing the results then, we saw in 2019 a 1.5 increase in the P1 plus C1 for the proved volumes. This is after you take the production out, this is equivalent to a 13% reserve replacement. We see significant volume additions from Angeline, Belly, Boom, Tuk, Mento, and Osprey East fields. The onshore discoveries by Touchdown Exploration, which is a new Trinidad operator in the Coho and Cascadura fields, appears to be promising. The 2019 year can then be summarized as production of 1.25 TCF, a P1 plus C1 technically recoverable resources of 10.686 TCF, a P2 plus C2 technically recoverable resources of 6.8 TCF, and a P3 plus C3 technically recoverable resources of 6.412 TCF. So this is the summary of our 2019 audit. And at this point, I want to thank you for your attention and proceed according to the agenda. Thank you.
And media host, proceed to active speaker, then mute your microphone. You may begin.
Hi, good morning to everyone on the panel. Ryan Hamilton Davis here from the Trinidad Newsday. I wanted to get my first question. I would like to get the Minister of Energy to expand a little bit on the recent deal between Heritage and the government for about 96,000 hectares. That's a combined blocks from two former companies. If you could expand on what it could do for the country and how it would benefit the overall bottom line for natural gas. That would be the first question. And for my second question, there were some concerns over the past year for the train one, for the LNG train one. Sorry. Is there any news of a new supplier? And well, there was also information that are circulating that NGC may have a part to play in its recovery. Could we get an update on that as well? Well, two questions. Thank you.
Having said that, they are legitimate questions that you have asked, so I'll attempt to answer them. The heritage license, it's really a renewal of what was then called the Trinidad acreage. So it is nothing new. However, it now gives them security of tenure for the next 25 years, and they have all the green light to proceed to optimize production from existing fields and to explore for new energy and to new oil reserves in the Gulf of Paria. We consider Heritage, as you know, to be the flagship state enterprise as we speak. They are very profitable, and they are very, very focused on developing reserves and increasing production. There is significant opportunities in the Gulf of Paria, which was formerly called Trinidad. That potential is being currently quantified, and they're developing an investment plan to proceed to get a production from its current 38 to 40,000 barrels a day to well over 60,000 barrels a day in the next 2 years or so. So that's a positive, and Heritage will be heavily capitalized, and I think more often than not they would have the money to invest in the acreage. They will also seek some joint venture partners along the way. With regards to Train 1, that has been a very topical issue. But at the conclusion of my speech, that is why after I dealt with the reserves position, I did touch on production. And you will realize from 2022 onwards into 2023, 24, and in particular 2024, 25, and 26, when the large manatee development will come in stream, and hopefully when the deep water gas will come in stream, we may well be in a position where there is surplus gas. So in other words, we hope that somewhere along that timeline, the supply will outstrip demand. That is why we felt from a strategic point of view from the government that we should keep Train 1 operational, because BP, who has been the 100% supplier of gas to Train 1, has stated that they can no longer guarantee the supply, and they did not renew the contract. But from the country's strategic position, we feel that there will be gas in the next 2 years or so to service Train 1. So we have taken the decision that we will, in the first instance here, invest some risk capital into the train to keep it in an operational ready mode. Because what we don't want to be, so to speak, is caught with our pants down, where later on there is gas and there is no capacity to process the gas.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Media, please be reminded to focus the questions more on the Trinidad and Tobago Gas Reserves and Resources Audit 2019. We may proceed. Next question, please.
Yeah, Minister, I'm not hearing you well. I don't know if other people are, but I'm not hearing you well at all. But I do want to ask you a question. You said that you expect in the third quarter BHP to bring on 150 million scuffs per day. And you talked about other people coming on in 2022 and so on. My question is, how do we trust your numbers in terms of people coming on when, for example, BHP in its own information talks about 80 million scuffs next year, not 150 million, which, as you know, is a huge differential. How do we trust your information and your statistics?
The Ruby project is by and large an oil field with a gas leg, not a gas leg, a gas cap. Initially, most of the production will be oil production. There will be associated gas, and coming off later in the production profile, the production could reach as high as 150 million cubic feet per day. But what I did in fact mean, probably I was ambiguous, is that the Ruby project will be commissioned and start its production at the third quarter, end 2021, at which point in time the primary production will be from oil. And then as we move later into the production profile, the gas production will kick in and peak at 150, probably more than 150 million cubic feet per day. So I thank you for the opportunity to make that clarification.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Any other questions? Any other questions?
It's Curtis Williams from Guardian Media. I don't want to hug all the questions, but I do also want to ask in relation to the deep water gas and its exploration. You talk about it. You talk about that coming on and so on, and making a big difference, I guess, post 2025. How do you respond to BHP's announcement today that in fact the broadside well, it's confirmation of something Guardian reported last year, that his broadside well was in fact a dry hole? Does that then increase the risk, as it were, to some of those numbers that we see in terms of the exploration potential?
The answer to that, okay, well, I'm speaking of, the answer to that is no. If you look at the distribution of the acreage, the BHP deepwater acreage is segregated into two major areas. The northeast acreage, which is off the northeast coast of Tobago, is where the gas discoveries have been made, which is Bele, Tobago, and some of the other discoveries. Those reserves are very well quantified, and the risk profile of that has been reducing significantly as they continue to do the appraisal and the assessment. The broadside well was drilled in the acreage of the southeast coast, and that was drilled as an oil prospect. And obviously, it is now official that that was basically a dry hole. They found the reservoirs. What they did not find is the charge, which is what they call thermogenic charge, that would have produced the liquid hydrocarbons. That's part of the course in the exploration process, but that in no way diminishes the potential of the northeast acreage.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Any other questions from the media? Questions from the media? Going once, going twice. Okay, I don't think. Okay, we have no more questions from the media. No, that was Curtis Williams.
I have a question, Troy. Are you there?
Sorry?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, I have a question. I don't know why my colleagues are a little bit reluctant to ask questions, but I do have another question. This time to Mr. Acuna. I hope I have the pronunciation is correct. The fact that there's been no bid round, certainly no deep water bid round, and no successful bid round for 7 years. How does that risk the ability to move these prospects from exploration potential into the 3P category? And what needs to happen to ensure that we have a consistent supply of natural gas going beyond 2025-26?
Well, as you know, we're focusing on the audit of the resources by themselves. So we're not familiar with what's happening with the new bid rounds. I can tell you that some of these deep water discoveries are currently under appraisal. I can also confirm that some of these deep water discoveries will take advantage as they move inland or onshore of some, potentially could take advantage of some of the existing shallow water infrastructure. So there could be some synergies. But regarding the status of the deep water bid rounds, that's something that you will have to discuss with the minister itself.
Let me come in here, because I know based on some of your articles, I have been put under some criticism with the bid round. To have a bid round, you must have acreage to put on. In terms of the shallow water, most of the shallow water acreage and most of the shallow water prospective acreage are already under license. So the real upside potential lies in the deep water. But it would have made no sense to come out with a parallel deep water bid round when we were in the throes of a successful deep water exploration program. Now that program has been completed. We have now coalesced the data, and we have made an important intervention here. We have now agreed with BHP for the declassification of the deep water data. So all the seismic and all the well information will now be packaged into and added to which the BHP will now be relinquishing acreage that they do not want, because that is part of the PSC. After the exploration period, you have to relinquish acreage that you do not plan to develop. So now we're in a position to have relinquished BHP acreage, which in a sense will be geographically close to the discoveries, and it will have important information both from its well information and its seismic program. Bearing in mind that BHP at the point in time ran the largest deep water seismic survey in the world. So we have a lot of data now that we can put back out into the market. And all things being equal, we hope to go into a deep water bid round probably by the end of 2021. Monitoring the market. And I want to make this other point. Deep water exploration is the most expensive part of exploration and production. It's not shallow water, it is not onshore. So it calls for significant capital. All over the world, international majors are constrained with capital. So possibly now is not the time to go out to the market. But having said that, we will be in a technically good position to go back out with a deep water bid round in the latter part of this year, and once the market assessment is conducted to see what will be the potential of that, we will definitely proceed. once the cabinet approves, to go out to the deep water Bedouin, which in my opinion will be quite attractive based on the BHP discoveries in the deep water over this full cycle here. So I think I look towards the deep water Bedouin with some optimism, and it will happen before the end of 2021.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Mr. Ryan Davis, you may proceed.
Yes, hi again, Ryan Hamilton Davis, Trinidad News. They have two more quick questions. One might be slightly off topic. Well, the first one, there was some issues. There were some issues with NGC. You know, there was the Trinidad one that closed in December, and some other issues. Will the audits that we have here and will the information that we have here be able to assist in giving us a better time frame for especially places that especially refineries that were closed down and had to do with the petrochemical sector? That's one. And then there's the second issue. There's the off-topic one, concerning Patriotic and the recent back and forth with their deal. Now a lot of the deal seems to be being aired out in the public arena, and it seems like there's a relative back and forth between government and Patriotic with pricing and some issues with mortgages and so on. Is this part of the course? Is this how these deals go, or is it something? Is the public interest getting in the way?
Let me deal with the reserves. This presentation gave a snapshot of the current reserves of the country. But reserves are resources, gas reserves and gas resources in the ground. What has to happen now is reserves have to be converted into production. And that is why I closed off my discourse on production. Production comes from drilling new wells. And that is the reason I outlined all the projects that are supposed to be coming on stream in 2022. And I did indicate that there will be a challenge on the supply side for most if not all of 2021. NGC continues to manage that challenge by optimizing their supply and distributing the resources in the most efficient way. So that's what happens to the production side. On the Patriotic, the Minister of Finance announced that Patriotic will be given 15-day extension to come up with a firm financial proposal from Credit Suisse, and he issued a press release to that effect, and I have nothing further to add on that matter.
Thank you very much. Final question from Curtis Williams. Curtis?
Sorry, Minister. Yes, Minister. I just have one last question, I promise you. Can you say what's the situation with respect to the shallow water bid round? Shell and the Shell, BP, and government have been in conversations months upon months upon months. Is it that we are not going to reach an agreement and we need to move on, similar to Patriotic, or are we going to have it going on as long as Patriotic situation?
That's a fair question. There are complexities. I'll be straightforward with you all. The shallow water bid round did not offer the most prospective acreage in the world. I will be the first to admit. A lot of that acreage was already relinquished acreage from other companies. So the geologic potential of those acreage was not as high as some other acreages. However, when the potential is not high, the bid will not be attractive. So we are trying to juggle our way to see what the Shell and BP bidded, if they could meet probably the lowest hurdle that the ministry will assign before we award the acreage. There's been a lot of discussion back and forth with the structure of the PSC contracts, with certain other fiscal issue. I know it has taken some time, but we are coming very close to the end of that exercise.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our press conference. On behalf of Senator the Honorable Franklin Khan, the Permanent Secretary, Deputy Permanent Secretary, and stakeholders of the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, I'd like to extend thank you to the media and those in attendance via online and television for viewing the press conference to discuss the results of the Trinidad and Tobago Gas Reserves and Resources Audit 2019. May the information provided be beneficial to all persons of interest. Have a great day, everyone.
Every child needs a VTech or Leapfrog to ensure the best educational experience. This walker and stroller ensures so many developmental benefits, enhances their motor skills, their language and developmental skills, encourages discovery and exploration, all while encouraging your child to take his very first steps.
The Leapfrog Scoop and Learn ice cream cart offers an imaginative way to exercise important memory and sequencing skills. These skills lay a critical foundation for all other learning areas, from recognizing cause and effect to learning to read and count. It also improves your matching skills, gives children the opportunity to listen to the order and follow the instructions, helps you learn colors, flavors and numbers, and also improves your fine motor skills while serving ice cream.
Now available in-store or shop online at dbesttoys.com. Call or WhatsApp 312-TOYS to order. Nationwide delivery available. Cash or links on delivery.